Good evening, everybody. We'll just wait for a few more seconds, see if anyone else joins us. Looking forward to the North American seminar this coming weekend. And I think there will be a UK one in October. I'm not sure of the date right now, but
I think it's the 21st.
It might be the 21st, Saturday. So this is a question from Addie.
22nd. No, that's not right.
In England.
15th.
Sorry about the 21st for the UK. It
October
seems
15th.
to be October the 15th. So Addie asks, can a fundamental diet change, like intermittent fasting, have a deep effect even to the degree of altering how life flows towards you? Very interesting question. There are many people who have all kinds of views about this. And I think even Nietzsche in some of his works discussed this particular kind of an engagement. And of course, I think Buddha also talked about it. I did write some stuff here, and I just wanted to cover what I thought might be valuable. And so I said, it depends who you talk to. There are so many theories, and that is true, including biblical theories about what you should eat in relationship to inner growth. In India, some swamis have tried fasting or not eating certain foods, and therefore eating other foods, of course, they believe valuable. These ideas affect the emotional mind or belief. However, the swamis also meditate and align with mantras or prayers that they use to attempt to engage with a higher state. They normally don't necessarily talk about what they've eaten or how they eat, because many of the swamis don't eat very much because they have no money to eat. But they don't talk about it in terms of causing them to reach deep inner states. However, they do talk about meditation and attempting in their own manner through mantras and meditating for many long periods of time to attain higher states. Definitely these mantras that are repetitive and the meditation energies stimulate internally each individual. However, there are firm generalities everywhere about everything, including spiritual development, especially in our Western world. Well, they have them in the Eastern world too. So when these swamis focus on higher states while meditating, they may gain access to these altered levels, these deeper levels, and over long periods of time doing the same thing, they engage past this concept of right versus wrong, all the rules that are necessary to be an actual spiritual person that many of us come up with. And I think one of the most important things to remember is that however your belief system sits within yourself, you tend to grow through these belief systems or not. But growing through them is part of the role that you play in relationship to your engagement with attempting to go beyond what is considered to be just exactly how things should be in relationship to enlightenment or let's say moksha or samadhi. This is very, very, very difficult because, belief systems play a tremendous part in how we see another individual as spiritual. And deep level honesty within ourselves, honesty with respect to how we function internally, plays a big role ultimately in what we gain access to or believe we gain access to. There is another aspect of spiritual growth in relationship to what we call spiritual growth, and that is a relationship with a true perception of the essence of a higher state. This is very difficult to pin down for many because it doesn't have much to do with feeling good or bad, right or wrong. It has everything to do with engaging in a state that goes beyond the personality's view of its own value. And this, of course, is not a summation that relates to internal growth. It's kind of a beginning of a relationship with internal growth. This is very difficult for us to make sense of because of our great need to feel comforted by what we believe in and how we think the world should be, both on material planes and also spiritual planes. I hope that helps a little bit, Addie. If a person does believe that fasting will work, they must perhaps run it through until they recognize that for them, it may be valuable or not valuable. There is a distinct difficulty with all ways of expressing oneself with respect to spiritual growth. And that difficulty happens to be in relationship to how the personality values itself. At these higher states, the personality itself is a functioning tool that is used by those higher states. Now, this is a hard one for our Western world, and in some cases in the East, because there are dilemmas in the same field of engagement with spirituality, where the intellect has considered itself to be highly touted, and it is valuable, but it's an aspect of a relationship with the matter planes. At some point, I think I may be able to talk a little bit more about that particular aspect, because in a kind of a way, in spite of being in samadhi or enlightenment, no matter what that sounds like or how it's defined, the individual must maintain a functioning physical, emotional, and mental structure of a kind that we're not really used to defining, rather than defining it as a personality who has attained such and such. That individual personality is too hooked into and relating primarily to those higher states. And sometimes, in some cases, has had to be coaxed to engage enough with these planes to maintain its existence. And in some cases, there have been cases where the individual was not interested in maintaining its existence on these planes simply because its focal point was only to be in those higher states and stopped eating and maintained focus only on the higher states. This is a very, very profoundly interesting question if you start looking at it from a point of view where the personality isn't interested in letting anyone know that it's relating directly, constantly to a higher state. Unless it has a purpose in doing so. Many, and I mean including being important because they're doing so, then of course they're still in a process of growth. But at a higher state, those higher states are engaging with and using that personality for a purpose that relates to the betterment of others in their spiritual growth, including transmission, energetically oriented on a level which is much more incisive than what we consider to even being worth something, because our focus is primarily on engaging with these planes, these matter planes, in a manner that emphasizes the personality's existence. That is still part of the process of growing. I hope this helps a little, Addie. There are a number of other questions here that I'm looking at that have, and by the way, thanks for that question, Addie, because it's a valuable question. The answer may not be as valuable to many as the question is. This question is from Carol Corbet in Ottawa. I have noticed that I am pulling away from communicating with others and that it has become an effort to make the attempt. Is this also happening on a wider social scale? This is a very interesting question. You've heard me talk about the engagement that the solar plexus, root, and gonad center have with the heart center. In the initial stages, the opening of the heart center, in a way, is compliant with that base foundational construct that we call personality. And it's important to do so. Not always is there a coming together of these three centers that stimulate the heart center in a manner that can be independent from the root gonad and solar plexus. It's much too difficult for us to handle. If the heart center comes on, in a manner that is affected by the throat center or the brow, just talk about those two. Because people like to talk about a whole bunch of stuff being open, and that's fine. But remember that root center can open right up to the crown. It has a firm link when it does open and send energy up to that top of the head with the matter world. And by many schools, that is considered to be quite sufficient, quite profound in relationship to being called a spiritual person. But it is enticing for sure. But it also stimulates the will center on a foundational level and the emotional center, which, by the way, every center can be that, but the emotional center in a foundational way, which validates the personalization, which is necessary on these planes to function. So there's no negation here. Along with that must come a sensitivity to others in a rendering of a personality that links with those three, let's say, foundational centers that enable us to be able to function to a large degree here on these planes. Almost operates like a funnel. Higher states already in you stimulate these centers as you are able to handle them. Well, what can begin to happen is there is activity in the heart center stimulated by old times when you were able to function all the way up to the top of the head energetically. In a world that focused on these particular things as being extremely valuable. They're still valuable. But the focus in a particular way was strong enough to begin to stimulate the brow center and the throat center in a manner that would begin to open the upper aspects of the heart center. Now, I'm focusing on upper part of the chest, and of course, it's a way of showing these things and how they work, but they're multidimensional. Each one of these centers are multidimensional. So, in the alignment that is involved with the foundational centers, another link of, if this so-called upper aspect of the heart center opens, it links with that lower structure. Because each center has a multi-dimensional link. So that upper aspect can link into that lower aspect of the heart, which is sympathetic and engaging, not only with others, but with yourself. So it preserves the self and how they need to be valued. And of course, as you grow internally, the same things don't give you a sense of value the way they did before. The base foundational response to that is, something wrong here. I'm not as happy doing what I want to do whenever I want to do it, whatever that may be, as I used to be. And it was really important. And I know that was really terrific. And in the 70s, as I said before, when many people were in India being initiated, energy being transmitted to them by some swamis, enabling them to grow in their personality, and their focus was on being spiritualized, being spiritual, and what it meant to be spiritual, and how you did things and why you did those things. And therefore you began to be spiritual. It isn't how spirituality works, but it is how the energy works. That was personalizations. We call it personality at play. No negativity attached to it. It's just part of how we cycle through these things, and we will continue to do so. This is a conversation that nobody really likes, because we like to think if you reach a certain point, then from there on in, you're really, really truly spiritual because you believe stuff, learn stuff. That stuff is there to help you to take a rest, to relax a bit, feel comfortable with yourself before the next movement occurs. This is not what any of us like to hear. But nonetheless, in this particular question, there's a dilemma. Pulling away from communicating with others, if the swamis in other practices heard this, they would be pleased and happy. We're not that pleased and happy in Western backgrounds. We lean on our ability to be able to communicate and engage with others, whether they want the engagement or not. Because that proves somehow that we're of some kind of value. You can see the dilemma. If an aspect of that upper heart center begins to open, and in the 70s, as I started to say, it began to open for many Westerners. What began to occur was they pulled away from spirituality. They stopped meditating. They headed back to the States and Europe and Canada and started to engage with life. They weren't ready to become an actual Swami that could walk all over India or wherever and transmit energy subtly so no one would know and help others all over the world. That ain't the way it's written. But it is. The issue in this was they started their lives. They got married, they had kids, helped the kids go to university, did the best they possibly could. And when that was reaching an edge of completion to some degree, many were pulled back towards the meditative, towards beginning to be where they were before when they quit. It's not their fault they quit. They had moved inside, reached a point where life would help them to engage in a way to blend and link in and set these relatively higher states into them by engaging and making sure they could live life while they were dealing with this increased energy. This is very important for them. When you're already involved with living life is the field where you practice. One way to look at it. And so they were practicing in the field of life. They did not perceive anything different in them. As a matter of fact, some of them didn't even meditate a single bit after that. They had reached a place where if they began to meditate again in that place, they would be too fearful. Already the response was based on fear. There's an internal discomfort that can occur in your inner spiritual development. That's why so many theories are of value. It holds you in a position and place where you feel more comfortable by not moving too much. This makes it very difficult for people who believe that they are fully spiritualized and sitting in a personality and assessing their worth as high. Your worth has always been high. No assessment involved. Your worth is precious. You are a being of consciousness where wherever you can go in relationship to higher states, moderate states, higher states in a lower level, upper level, wherever you go, you will be of some help because that flow can operate through you, not because your personality happens to be wonderful, but it's how we're trained to make sense of a personality. So there's no negation in that, but misunderstandings. But there are misunderstandings in everything. And we continue to grow in every aspect of life, material and spiritual. In my world, they're not very much separate from my understanding. But you have your own understanding. In Carol's case here, it may be that because of a throat center, there has been stimulation and movement in that lower aspect of the heart center into a place where a sense of vulnerability is strong. What do I mean by that? Movement different than what was comfortable before. When it does get that way, there's a kind of quieting or a sense of loss that can occur. A sense of missing how you were when you were 16, 18, 30, 50, or whatever. Because that was reassurance that you have applied all the matter rules to yourself and became functional and able. And that's a very important thing on all levels. Make the effort to attempt. Talk to yourself. Be reasonable with you. Understand that there's something going on in there. Engage with life, physically, emotionally, mentally. Do it on a social scale and a non-social skill. Ask yourself questions. Don't expect perfect answers. Nobody has them. Our problem is we think we do. But that's only because you're trying to help your personality feel better if you have a sense of what is valued from your point of view in that moment. You attach value to that. It's okay. That's what we've been trained to do. Finding a balance in all of this is extremely important for everyone. Engaging in life, asking the questions that you need to ask to yourself, and wondering whether there are any answers different than the ones you come up with reflexively. And move forward to the next question, because the one that you've just answered will come up again. And this is what does happen. Unless you have decided there's only one answer, and that'll be the only answer that you will accept. And that will be the most natural way of holding you in a position relative to a moment for a purpose that relates to your personality. And remember, personality is energy. You're not practicing to move the personality out and overcome others with it. Although sometimes this is what we think is appropriate to do. It isn't really. But this is past stuff that makes us want to do this, because a nurturing needs to be done by us, for us, to us, in a very positive manner. The one thing about inner growth is there is change. And the one thing interestingly about inner change, or a change that you can begin to learn to see, is that you'll begin to learn to see when you don't want to. It's just like that. Don't be afraid to laugh. We're so well trained not to laugh. I wish you well with that, Carol, because two other questions are coming along the similar line. And these questions are good questions. They're not negative at all. Listen to this one. Can you talk about the effects of, this is from Jennifer Butler. And I think she's in Maryland. Forgive me, Jennifer, I got that one wrong. Can you talk about the effects of living life on our spiritual development? I've been finding it very difficult to maintain a balance between responsibilities and work and life with my meditation practice. I feel increasingly afraid that I'm losing touch with the spiritual process and worry that I will go off track. I'm asking for help with this and for protection from anything and anyone that might be interfering, including myself. When we're engaging with our personalities, what we focus on gets stronger. You could say energy follows thought. That would be the one thing that often many people say. And I suspect it's not only thought, it's reflex reaction. It's how you personalize things, how you express them, how you hold back, how you attempt to do this, that, or the other thing. Whatever that focus is, whatever you're familiar with, and how you do them. That's a congregating energy flow. They move together and make a line and then a bigger line, maybe a highway. But the more you see these things, the more you realize that every time you express yourself, you're insulating an expression and hopeful that it will remain. And we don't even think of it. If you look at work that you do as spiritual, then you're really attempting a balance in the matter world with that energy that's coming in, and you're engaging in a kind of a way, if you can, by focusing on that work, which it sounds like you're doing, that is a kind of meditation state. Well, it's not sitting down, putting your hands out, turning on the hands and the wrists, and perceiving that energy, but it is using that energy for a purpose called concentration. Being aware of what you're doing in a moment. Okay. Then attempt to perceive the best you can that essence or flow. If you are aware of it when you're meditating or when you're relaxing, you can slowly learn how to do these things and be aware at the same time. It does cause a dilemma. Many people say you can't do two things at the same time. Well, you're actually shifting your awareness and developing your awareness at the same time. How does that work? Well, your focus is on what you're doing, and it's getting stronger. Trying to be aware of the energy that is engaging with that strengthening is another way of looking at a concentration meditation. In some traditions, it's what they do to meditate. They maintain a focus on an attention of some kind, often with the brow. It's not always that. Solar plexus sometimes, depending on the belief system that they have. And in doing so, at the same time you're doing that, you're trying to be aware around you so that you can perceive the essence or flow that's moving you to pay attention stronger. All right, that creates a tremendous amount, if you're doing it with intensity. It creates a tremendous amount of intensity in your body and in your personality, so that whatever you did before is increased. That's a little bit of a difficulty with that kind of meditation. So you strive to find a balance in it. One way of doing it is talking to yourself while you're doing it. Easy does it now. Let me just see what I can do here with this job. All right. And at the same time, you're trying to calm down just a little bit, soften, and then recognize through the softening that there is energy in you and around you. This you can do because you have had access to the perception of that energy before. The dilemma is if you are engaging in a manner that you're afraid you won't do a good job, then your focus will be on fear and vulnerability. And as you focus more on that, it will get stronger. All of us have these things inside of ourselves. So this is not only a question for Jennifer. If you notice them, yes, ask for healing for them or help that they be softened, gentled in a way that would be appropriate for you in your continual engagement with your job and your spiritual development, whatever that may look like, through your engagement with life. Because remember, you're growing through you, but you're also inquiring through you. You're inquiring of you through you. You're asking you these questions. This is a question. All of these are questions that people are asking themselves. The answer that you engage with will be the one that you act on, and then another one you'll act on, and then another one you'll act on as you're engaging in life, attempting to see you as you honestly are. Then, if you can, realize that each and every one of us are like that to some degree. That's why it's so disabling in a kind of way to judge other people in a harsh manner. Basically, in a kind of a way, they can't do anything other than that, which they are doing in a moment, and either can you in your judgment. So if you get to know that, you can get to slow that judgment down and also attempt to help you in your relationship with you the best you can. There's no perfection in this. We argue about perfection and the way things should be and shouldn't be, and all the rest of it. Keep a piece of you to yourself, as honest as you can get it, and then find a balance in it. If you really do that, that higher state will help you. I mean, the flow that's operating in you, unknown to you right now. I wish you well with that, because you are living through life like the rest of us. And each one of us is trying to do exactly what you're attempting to do. And do the best you can. That will be respectful to you. No negation. Best you can. Just see and attempt to understand those vulnerable areas that we all have within ourselves about engaging the way our system seems to be engaging. It's always a dilemma. As we get over 30, for example, we begin to run into an understanding that's different than what we're told should be. That understanding is that we are continuing to grow. I don't care what it is. And seeing various vulnerabilities that we have within ourselves and trying to do the best we can with them. Sometimes we're really effective and sometimes we are not. That is the nature of a human being. The nature of an elevated being, in a not so precisely kind way, is one that only sees others from a negative perspective. They cannot see that they're hurting themselves. And once they start seeing that it might be hurtful, then they run face to face with the idea that they've been trained to do this. And it's very difficult. But there's no negation in it. They do that honestly the best they can. They will succeed, not succeed, succeed, not succeed, over and over and over and over again. That is not a negative put down. And in its own way, that awareness is a blessing. Learning how to gentle it down, soften, it is not so simple. But remember, the more energy that flows through you as subtle as possible, the more awareness you have. And if you can ask questions of these kind, your awareness is increasing. Be gentle with yourself and respectful of yourself and others as they grow. Just remember, many can't perceive that flow, no matter how little. I wish you well. Thanks for the question. It's a difficult questions to ask. It's about 10-2, and this is a question from Brahman Rees in Aylmer. I think they call it something else now. I'm not sure. It might even be part of Gadno. My question has to do with curiosity and shifts in energy. I find that so much focus and energy is spent on seeing, feeling, and reacting, or developing conclusions that these responses override any tendency to remain curious and ask open questions. I would call that stonewalling. What your system is doing, that natural reflexive response, is holding you from engaging overtly with you for all kinds of personality reasons. You can write a question like this. If you can do that, it enables you to allow yourself to speak those questions as well. The dilemma is we all fear that we're going to ask the stupidest question. And people are going to assess us and judge us by the questions we ask. It happens to be true. People do that sometimes. But it has nothing to do with being honest about a question. That's them doing their thing. Doesn't have an awful lot to do with reality. It has to do with protection of their the way they see the world, their expression. This is normal. You'll do the same thing. I can even do the same thing. In an instant, it can happen. And then you have an option. Another instant, you can say, wow, that was not something that I really appreciate. And change it. It's allowed. Yeah, but people are going to think I'm a little weird if I start changing the way I say things. No. They'll look at you kind of funny because they probably wish they'd have been the ones to be able to do that. And other people will judge you even for that. Nobody is perfect. Go slow with these things. Attempt them. Try them. You'd be shocked to find out that sometimes, wow, people have no response about these things. Or they might allow themselves to think that you're an okay person because you have some of the same things that they do in you. This is generally speaking for everybody. I mean everybody. Because we're sometimes deluded into thinking what we say is absolute truth. And our truths are always changing. If you see something from a different perspective, be okay with that. That's part of growing. And part of recognizing that we can misunderstand all kinds of things. And we do. In fact, I find it hard to develop questions at all. Is this due to upbringing, culture, societal pressures, or just habit? Probably all of the above for all of us. And how do we train ourselves to find the questions? Live with yourself daily. Recognize. Smile. See those incidental frailties that become really thickly involved with being right or wrong. Shrug your shoulders and say, whoops. Wow, I think I saw that one. It's okay. You're helping you the best you can. You're trying to be as honest as you can without judging it. Just say, I never knew that. I can do that sometimes. I never knew that. It'll leave an opening. Openings start happening. And you start engaging in this funny way. Say things like, I don't understand that. Can you help me understand that? What you just said? Because I don't really understand that. That's amazing. It's freeing. You don't have to understand it all. Nobody does. Be curious about you and how you function. Curiosity doesn't mean you have to judge it. You don't have to be right. You don't have to be wrong. And if others do judge you, I'm sorry. They shouldn't, but they're trained to do it. And you are too. And so is everybody. The other day when the Blue Jays lost, I said, God, what is wrong with that team? It's a game. Sometimes they're going to win. Other times, they're not going to win. Sometimes it's just too difficult to play a game perfectly the way they should every single day. Kind of nonsense. But read the sports writers. There's a reason for all of that, and this is why, and all the rest of it. It's the same internally. We become sports writers in this life, of this life, why this life should be this way versus that way. Check to see if that might be true. And then she says, I'm usually busy with answers without being aware that there are questions at all. Good for you, not so good sometimes. Be what you are. Find out. There may be something else going on there. Something of a help for all of us. You've asked 1, 2, 3, 4, basically 4 or 5 questions, and given a few answers as well. Good for you. Thanks, everybody, and thanks for the flurry of questions. I'll be using some at the on the weekend, and I wish all of you a tremendously fantastic evening, and we'll talk later. Wish you well. Good night. We're going to meditate now. Now we'll just begin to do the balancing and grounding on your own. And take care, everybody. Good night.